2 years ago tomorrow, a teenager armed with an assault-style weapon entered Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And while law enforcement waited outside for instruction, the gunman killed 19 children and 2 teachers. A new ABC News documentary follows the journalists at the local newspaper, the Uvalde Leader-News, as they scramble to cover the massacre in their own small town and the challenges they faced as they pressed for answers from local officials, even as many of the paper's staff struggled with their own grief and loss.
I have covered child homicides before. I have requested autopsies. And now my daughter's autopsy will be made public one day.
Reporter Kimberly Rubio, who we just heard in that clip, and Uvalde Leader-News publisher Craig Garnett are with us now. Thank you both for joining us. Kimberly, I want to start with our sincerest condolences. You lost your 10-year-old daughter, Lexi, in that mass shooting in Uvalde. It's been 2 years. You're now an activist on gun control issues. How are you getting by every day, and also what's next for you?
I think the first year you're in shock and numb. I think year 2 is extremely difficult. I've seen it with my own family, with my other children. We stay busy. I don't think I'll ever accept what has happened, so I stay busy.
And Craig, I want to ask you, can you take us back to those first few days and weeks after the shooting? What were your instructions to Kimberly, to your staff, for the coverage and the investigation that followed?
Our news staff was bowled over by the events, and we struggled for the first 2 or 3 days to even act like we knew what we were doing. Our first paper, which was 2 days after the event on Thursday, was put together not haphazardly, but under duress. As it turned out, it was a wonderful product for what it was. Then as time went by, we sort of gathered our senses and began to go about reporting in what was a fairly routine, although difficult way.
And Craig, just as yourself and Kimberly, I've covered some really horrific stories, and it's really hard to be in that moment and do your job and also kind of control your emotions. Were you concerned about your staff at all during this time?
Of course. I mean, it was trauma, a great deal of which came from our nearness to Kimberly and Lexi, and for the other families, children and teachers who didn't live that day. So, yeah, I worried about them. It's an overwhelming thing to try to cover when these are people you love and are near to, and you just simply go sort of sleepwalking, I guess, through the days. But we gained more balance as time went on, but it was a struggle, and it still is.
Of course, it's such an extremely difficult situation, and I'm sure a pain that just never goes away. Kimberly, yesterday the city of Uvalde announced a settlement with most of the victims' families. The agreement includes a promise to overhaul the city's police force. As we know, those officers stood outside that classroom for more than an hour. How does this settlement sit with you and the other families?
I can only speak for myself. The settlement is a step in the right direction, a step toward healing, but it is in no way justice. We are still waiting for the newly hired police chief to decide whether there'll be any terminations, to decide if there will be structural changes. He's promised increased training and equipment, and we're going to hold him to that.
Kimberly, we want you to know that we hold Lexi in our hearts. She will never be forgotten. We are so supportive of you and the other families. Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing your journey with us. And thank you, Craig, as well, for speaking with us. We wish you both the best as your community continues to grapple with the impact of this mass shooting. The documentary Print It Black premieres tomorrow night here on ABC News Live and on Hulu.